What they meant were the boyfriend houses were just places where they were taken to. Some of these places were not the boyfriend houses, but they were told that this is my house. Some of them, they live in places where owners maybe are working in some towns, and they take care of such houses. Now, when these guys are taken there, they know that these are their boyfriend's houses. Guest houses were coming very low at 8.85% because we know in Kenya, child marriage is a crime. And in fact, the acts that I've mentioned, Sexual Offences Act of 2006, Revised Child Marriage of 2014, Children's Act of 2022, all of them discriminalize child marriage or sexual activities with a child. And if, in case you are caught, then you will face the full force of the law. Now, most of them were shying away from going to guest house because of such issues of crime that they may be caught in the act. Now, when we're looking at place of first sexual intercourse, the number of sexual partners, we found that these particular girls, before they got married, they had multiple sexual partners. And this we can relate to. Homa Bay County has been known as a county where we have issues of HIV has been there, issues of child we call it teenage pregnancies have been there. Now this we can relate to issues of child marriage and also HIV and AIDS. HIV and AIDS has been fought, but still Homa Bay County in the recent past, 2 years ago, and even now, it is very high. Child marriage is also teenage pregnancy is also high. This depicts that this particular area has, girls in this area had multiple sexual partners. Virginity is not preserved in this region because we only have 6.19% who were saying that they had never had sexual intercourse before they got married. Just 6.1%. Now, these particular findings have been supported by several scholars. But because of time, I'm going to look at the regression analysis. I noted that we used multiple regression analysis to look at the relationship between child marriage and also sexuality. And in the model, we have R, which was 6.89, which is indicating that there's moderate correlation, 0.689%. Now, there is a relationship between the two, sexuality vis-a-vis child marriage. And we were looking at those predictors. Then in the conclusion, we concluded that in essence, sexuality is indeed influencing child marriage. And we were recommending that now sex education needs to be done in schools, and again through the teachers. And again, when looking at the recommendation, again we're saying that government should develop a framework to implement some policies, because these policies are there. Acts are there. We mentioned several acts, but still, this particular menace is still there. Now, maybe there is no framework to implement these policies, and also we're also recommending that we do sensitization to members of the public against this social problem, which is child marriage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelvin, Professor Tenga, and Dr. Shivachi. Let's appreciate them as usual, 2 factorial. Let's go. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Don't sit down. I want to open this floor for questions. I can see one there. Let's start from there. We'll give you 2. Okay, 3, and then you respond.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I'm only interested in the last part where you are carrying out the regression analysis. Are you trying to look at the causal relationships that among the variables are there, or you're simply trying to measure the level of association? Why regression, not correlation? Thank you.
Yeah, mine is a simple one. I had this issue of early marriages. To me, I find like we have lost it because we have gone absent parents, and we have lost some values which were key in upbringing our siblings, because maybe we are working, both of us, and the maids are in charge of our kids. So don't you think a revert to the African cultural setting to impart some of these values can reduce it?
I can say something. I've been given a mic and it's still on. Oh, I can say something. I think mine is on the instrumentation, the instrument that you have used. I saw a place you're saying place of sexual intercourse. And you're listing boyfriend's house, maize plantation, sugarcane plantation, and guest house. What if it is in the bush? How will this person manage? How will we be able to capture? Or it could be at night in the open. You know, it could be anything. I don't know how, because basically this is very important in research. And I know somebody who does research is very important, because we need to, when you're doing an instrument, you need to develop an instrument that is able to accommodate the responses. Otherwise, then you can actually say in the open, so that you are able to get the people responding appropriately. Or you can then have it as an open-ended questionnaire where you are telling them and any other, so that you can be able to come back and be able to recollect. And so that's exactly what I wanted. Of course, the other question I had was the issue on regression. You know, the moment you venture into a regression, then apart from looking at the R and the adjusted R, the R squares, would also expect to see the coefficients, and whether would now want to see the variables that you are measuring against the independent variable. Then we'll go back to what your supervisor was talking about, the conceptual model. The moment you get into regression, then my eyes become awake. I was not able to pick up, I'm a quantitative person. So when you get there, and I try now to see how you're able to conceptualize and how you're able to run the regression with regard to the variables, which variables were on your independent map and which one was your dependent variable. What are the coefficients? Were these coefficients important? We go back to causal relationship. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelvin, for that presentation. And I could wish to ask one or two sets of clarification. Number one, you were talking about child marriage. But then looks like the respondents, they are currently married and they're no longer children. Maybe you ought to have said, could it be you're looking at first sexual encounter? Secondly, you're talking about child marriage, and then we also know we have children who kind of get married illegally to other children. We're talking about an adolescent who's 15 years in Form 1, and a boyfriend who's 16 years in secondary. Why were we only looking at one perspective? We're only looking at girls, what is happening to these boys, because a sexual encounter has to call for two unless you belong to the other side. Finally, you had statistics on the child marriage prevalence, and I was happy you were able to bring in Kenya, but apparently you forgot to bring in Africa and East Africa. And the preference, as much as to give us the percentages, we were not able to see the year, or rather the source, such that we were able at least to go home and say that we have a global preference of 21% as per the statistics that were carried out in maybe 2024. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Though there's another hand there. Let me just respond to this. Now, we chose on regression analysis because we're looking at causal relationship, and regression is tied with ANOVA. And in the work, we also have the how these particular variables, the dependent and independent variables, are interacting. They are there in the document. Though for this presentation and the time factor, I only gave the summarized version of regression, though they are there. Then child marriage, Professor has talked about values which has been lost. And at some point, I mentioned that these particular girls were getting into child marriage through peer pressure, peer influence. And I said that nowadays, what we used to do as parents have changed. In fact, we learn a lot. These children learn a lot from their peers rather than from their parents whom they are supposed to get values from. Values are supposed to be instilled through the parents, but because parents are nowadays absent, maybe due to work, due to some engagements, and this we've left even to the nannies, the maids, and the rest. So these children, they end up learning a lot of these things from their peers. And I think what Prof have answered that. We have an over which has given the interactions of independent and the dependent variables. And Dr. Hari has asked about why do we look at adults? These are people who are between 18 years and 24 years. Now, we consider these people are people who are recently married. They have not been in marriage for maybe for a long time, and they can still remember vividly what have happened prior to their marriages. And again, we were also doing this because we know these children, child marriage is a crime. And getting information from a child who is married currently might not be easy because they may think that you are going to implicate the husband. The husbands will be arrested and that. So we chose on this because we chose on this age category because we know they can still remember vividly what happened prior to their marriages. That's the choice of category. Then again, a question has been asked about why girls and boys. Now, this study is looking at specifically girls, and we at some point we are going to recommend that at least a study can be done on the boys. This is the area that we have chosen, just girls, but a study can be done on that particular area, on the boys. That will come as a recommendation in our final work.
Because in the interest of time, kindly I'll request that if you have any other question, maybe you can see him behind the doors. I think there are issues they're raising which you really need. It's going to help you improve your work because your title is amorphous. That's why the question is moving around. Thank you so much. Allow me to bring in the third presenter. The fifth presenter, John Korir. He's going to present to us research entitled Exploring the Tapestry of Adolescent Alcohol Consumption, a Socio-Ecological Perspective from Kakamega County. Okay, there's a mix-up, so there's a change. What he's going to present is the slide which is projected. The influence of community-level factors on alcohol consumption among adolescents in secondary schools in Kakamega. Welcome, Korir. Thank you.
Thank you. I thank Rongo University Management for arranging this very important occasion to enable us make presentations. My name is John Korir. I'm presenting with Professor Wilson Otenga, Professor Susan Kilonzo, and Dr. Taiji Shifaji. The topic is influence of community-level factors on alcohol consumption among adolescents in secondary schools in Kakamega County, Kenya. Next. Alcohol consumption, the history of alcohol consumption is mysterious and nobody knows exactly when alcohol consumption began. But according to Phillips 2020, there is a trace of use of alcohol around 7,000 BC by way of studying residues that were found in pots, which showed the element of fermentation of alcohol using rice, grapes, and even honey. World Health Organization gives Europe having the highest alcohol consumption rates in the world. But according to Brasaka et al. 2020, globally, adolescents do consume 26.5%, while in Africa, this rate is at 46%, East Africa 33%, and Kenya at 50%. According to Flo et al. 2020, it describes alcohol as a psychoactive drug that has harmful effect in the health of human beings with a high burden of disease. Social dynamics were equally conceptualized as community-level factors. This study was actually guided by Uriye Bronfenbrenner theory that talks about the interplay between the group dynamics and how it affects an individual, and how the same individual in the society can affect the entire community in a vicious cycle. According to World Health Organization 2023, it describes adolescents as persons between the age of 10 and 19 years. We also found that overall, half, that is 54.8% of minors in Kakamega County, the adolescents, have partaken or have experimented with alcohol, according to County Government of Kakamega 2022. Kenya is affected by use of alcohol generally in the society, and more so among the adolescents. And this affects the development, even in terms of security, the economy, the health, and even attainment of national development goals. Western region of Kenya has a severe alcohol abuse disorders at 24.5%, according to NACADA 2022. Chang'a is equally leading in Kakamega County nationally at 13.5%, followed by traditional Liga, that is Kangara, Busa, and those are the associates, at 17.4%. It puts Kakamega in the highest limit, followed by Kiambu. Kakamega, Western region, Kakamega as a county has a 46% alcohol use, which is an alcohol disorder, according to records of 2019. Kakamega County equally has a rural population of 90%, and 42.5% has a prevalence of adolescents' alcohol consumption, which is the highest in Kenya, according to NACADA 2022. Now, the government has put in place Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Control Act of 1994. There is also Alcoholic Control Act of 2010, and Kakamega County Drinks Control Act of 2014. All these have been put in place, but the consumption of alcohol among adolescents in Kakamega County is still on the rise. It shows there are other interplaying factors, socio-economic, within the socio-economic environment, and how it affects on community factors. Next. The study adapted descriptive statistics, employed descriptive statistics, aligning with the quantitative nature of the study. Inferential statistics were equally looked into by way of logistic regressions that were used to draw conclusions and make predictions about the study variables, using that simple sample to portray what the entire population in the study area could look like. Cross-sectional survey design and mixed sampling approaches were used. To arrive at the study area, multi-stage clustering, proportionate, stratified, random, and purposive sampling methods were used. The study targeted 41,373 adolescents and arrived at a sample of 381 adolescents as main respondents. Kakamega as a study area was clustered from the 12 sub-counties, then purposefully identifying 3 sub-counties for purposes of this study. And the 3 sub-counties were Kakamega North, which has the highest prevalence of alcohol consumption within the county at 22.3%, followed by Kakamega Central at 20% and Mumias West at 12.4%. The remaining 9 sub-counties actually have a combination of 45% prevalence, and that is the map of Kakamega. Kakamega County, showing the sub-counties 12 in number. In findings, community level factors were measured from accessibility, that is the distance as a variable, time as a variable, and cost as a variable. All these are the independent variables actually affecting these are independent variables affecting the dependent variable, which is in this particular factor, it is the availability, that is the presence of beer, wine, spirits, traditional brews, and any other in that category. Responses on accessibility, affordability, and community perception were the respondents were categorized from those who come from within less than a kilometer towards, to distance from where they stay to where alcohol is consumed. And within half a kilometer, it is only 13% of the proximity of alcohol consumption points. Of greatest importance is the 1 kilometer and 2 kilometer in between, portraying a percentage of 32.8%, and those from 2 kilometers and above, 33%. It shows that 2/3 of the respondents are actually not coming from close to where alcohol consumption is sold. So it tells us the adolescents can move any distance with the desire to partake of alcohol. Distance is not a matter. Another variable was time of selling alcohol, which in analysis do show that at night it portrayed a 31.2%, but of greatest importance is the availability of selling alcohol in the morning, that is at 35%, and all times in the day. If you add the two, it gives over 52% of alcohol consumption in the morning and all times, and these are the critical moments where the students, especially the day scholars, are supposed to be going to school. Next. I think it was a repetition. Next. Another variable was the cost of alcohol. 41% of the respondents did say the alcohol is very expensive at 41%. Others said it is rather expensive. In general, over 70% of the respondents do actually say alcohol is very expensive. There are those who said alcohol is cheap, depending on what kind of alcohol, the variety they were partaking of. Thank you. Next. Availability was also a variable. The availability of different types of alcohol that are exposed to the adolescents. And from all those who confess that they have partaken of alcohol, 35.2% do say they have access to one particular element of alcohol, while others have 2, have 3, have 4, and beyond. So over 73% have the ability to access more than one type of alcohol. This shows that the availability of alcohol can actually influence the partaking of alcohol among adolescents in Kakamega County. There was also a question posted about the perception of the community, whether they tolerate. If they tolerate, it is a positive indication, and it gave a 9.2%. While those who said the community actually does not tolerate the consumption of alcohol among adolescents, it gave 13.9%. But there is a larger category of people or respondents who said the society does not care whether we take alcohol or not. And this is a very dangerous population, whereby this 76.9 is an indication that if these adolescents are influenced, we will never have a generation in that particular county. Thank you. From key informants and FGDs, some were able to say this is just an extraction. Some boys are free in the evening. And our findings do show that boys are more affected than girls. And girls probably because they engage in a lot of activities at home after school, they are actually tied up, unlike boys who are, in most cases, they are more idle. One chief said some of these boys pass by alcohol selling points, especially in the morning, and there is a likelihood that they can even have a sip before they go to school. It shows how boys are affected than girls. In the logistic regression analysis, on alcohol consumption on community level factors of adolescents in the secondary schools in Kakamega. Within a distance of within 1 kilometer, proximity to alcohol, it gave a p-value of 0.133, and those who come from around 2 kilometers, a p-value of 0.877, and those who are from 3 kilometers and beyond, giving a 0.613 p-value. This actually indicates that all these this particular variable, that is the distance to alcohol, has no statistical significance in the log odds of alcohol consumption among adolescents. It means that distance is immaterial. These young people can go whatever distance to partake of alcohol. Next. On time as a variable was equally analyzed, and time one is actually those who partake of alcohol in the night, and it has no no significance in the log of odds because of the p-value of 0.569. But of greatest importance is time of selling alcohol in the evening and in the morning, with a positive significance in the log odds of alcohol consumption among adolescents. This particular time, that is in the morning, it shows that these are the great indicators which have a positive influence on how adolescents do take alcohol. Thank you. Another variable was the cost. Cost one being very expensive, the cost two was rather expensive, and the two, very expensive and rather expensive, they gave a p-value of 0.005 and 0.049 respectively. The rest, in terms of affordability, in terms of cheap or very cheap alcohol, it gave no logistic, no significance in the log odds of alcohol consumption in that particular study area, with a p-value of 0.293 and 0.133 respectively. In conclusion, social dynamics is a significant predictor in general of alcohol consumption in the study area. Distance as a variable, cost as a variable, the community perception as a variable are actual indicators which gave a positive significance in the log odds of alcohol consumption. Neither, these have also not deterred alcohol consumption. Sorry, there is a mix-up. I said distance, the cost, and community perception gave a no significance of log odds of alcohol consumption among adolescents in this particular study area. Nonetheless, they have not deterred alcohol consumption. It means there is high prevalence of alcohol. High prevalence of alcohols could actually be informed by other indicators which compel adolescents to partake of alcohol. Availability, for example, it gave cumulatively availability of alcohol during critical hours, that is in the morning and all times, gave a 52.7%, which which has a lot of influence, and it can derail the learning activities of the adolescents. On diversity, it gave 65% having several types, which means the exposure of these several types can actually influence adolescents to partake of alcohol. However, this contributes to the complex dynamics of alcohol consumption in the area. Next, recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. In the interest of time, maybe let me give room for 2 questions. It's 4:40. We want to finish by 5. 2 questions, if they're there on the floor. Korir, stay around. Room for 2 questions. Oh, Prof is there.
Thank you, Korir. I wanted to seek clarification on, I've seen you have, you're using logistic regression. Maybe one clarification I wanted to ask or seek is why you have decided to use logistic regression. That is number 1. And number 2, I've seen you are interpreting your regression, the logistic regression results based on the level of significance, but I have not heard you mention anything on the coefficients, because it could be significant, but again, it could be significant, but then you look at the coefficients. What does the coefficient say? Is it negative or positive? Because it could be significant. It affects, yes, but it could be affecting positively, or it could be affecting negatively, so that you are saying cost affects, yes, positively. It is significant, it is less than 0.5. But then is it positive? Because basically the coefficients make a lot of meaning, and that can also help you to interpret, to be able to interpret your results and say, okay, it is the cost is, when the cost is higher, then there is less consumption. So those the interpretation of those coefficients become necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Okay, there is one at the back, Dr. Adoyo, that's the last one. And then you respond, and then we take the last presentation.
Thank you very much. Just speaking to layman, I would wish to see something on conclusion that says, yes, selling alcohol at night or its accessibility at night or in the morning has influenced the habit of, let's say, those young boys or men taking alcohol. So translation, or rather interpretation of conclusion, to be really something that communicates to audience is important to me, and I would wish the speaker really to clarify what has he come to conclude.
Thank you. Korir, here is the microphone.
Thank you, Professor. The first question was why logistic regression use, and why the interpretation of p-values alone and not the coefficients. This is my first time to my interpretation about this particular presentation of the seminar. I was told of 20 minutes, and I thought if I go deeper into it, I may not even reach methodology. But however, in the main thesis, this is actually an extract of one of the objectives, I do have it. And the use of this logistic regression actually was only to draw, to make a prediction of using the small sample size and to make a prediction and make a conclusion of how the entire sample of 4,000 students do look like. But I do have them in the main interpretation. Like in a nutshell, every one single unit increase in the log odds of alcohol consumption actually interprets the behavior of a particular variable and how it influences the consumption of alcohol in the study area. I think those were the 2 questions. In conclusion, I talked about how how selling alcohol in the morning, and more so all times, I even gave a percentage of 65%, if not well taken care of, by way of ensuring that this mitigation in terms of laws, if they are not implemented fully, we may not have a generation in future. It has a lot of influence, and I've talked about 65% prevalent.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I think we'll move on. I'll request that if I'm locking you out, please forgive me, but you have room to talk to him and give him some advice to improve his work. Thank you so much. We started late at 2:40, but we are still on time, but late. So the last presentation by Josephat Ogueno. Josephat Ogueno is going to present to us a research entitled The Portrayal of Women in Sports Journalism, an analysis of their level of engagement and representation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, convener, for the moment. I want to look at the portrayal of women in sports journalism, analyzing the level of engagement and representation. This study is actually, still go up a bit. First slide, sorry. This study is looking at two sections, the portrayal of women in sports journalism in the level of engagement, and the second section is in the representation. I want to begin from the premise that the media has become an arena where socialization and issues to do with representation and engagement has been given a foreplay. And in regards to that, this study that is still in progress has first of all looked at the portrayal of women in sports journalism in the level of engagement. The study is still on in the level of representation. And therefore, when we move to the second slide, you look at a sample of a newspaper article that has been given. Please, second slide, to show what actually I'm looking at in regards to the portrayal of women in regards to engagement in sports journalism. It is important to note from the word go that women are employed in media houses. And when they're employed in media houses, they are supposed to be engaged in a number of areas. One of the areas is in reporting. The other one is in content creation. The other one could either be in managerial positions. This sample of a newspaper written by Mercy Njoroge is a lady. And in the byline, she talks about women in media should strive to tell stories about women. From the word go already, a woman is giving a direction in regards to engagement, and she wants women to write stories in regards to women's stories. And that is the bone of contention and the gap that I'm looking at, the visibility of engaging women in regards to sports journalism. In this perspective, then, you realize that in the backgrounding, the increase in female broadcasters has been there time with time. But regarding this, you realize that it is becoming less and less in regards to print content creation. That's according to Scholz and Chambers. But then women are given lighter topics in regards to the content of engagement in the media. And when we shall go to the next slide later, you'll realize that these lighter topics are the one we are asking ourselves, what is the visibility of women in regards to sports journalism? But sports journalism is an area that has got specific gender disparities. Are women given roles? Do they engage in active sports coverage? And in this case, therefore, we are looking at the focus which is in the visibility of women sports journalists. That is the level of engagement. And therefore, you realize that the aforementioned in the third slide, next, the subtopics or the topics that women are so much engaged in regards to sports delivery, or not sports delivery, but giving information in the production, in the newsrooms, including sports. These topics are like one that women are supposed to be covering lighter topics like fashion, domestic issues, gossip, sexism, trauma, violence, down to social exclusion, climate change. From the aforementioned, you realize that the so-called harder topics of production are not given to women. And from the sample that I gave, that one gives me a background to cover or to capture in the study. Remember, I've said we are on with the study. Now, what is the problem here? Do women and women journalists make news? That's the level of engagement I'm looking at. Do they make news? And in regards to making news, I'm looking at, should we depict women positively through quality and quantity coverage or not? But if so, then what is the case? When you're talking about quality and quantity, you're talking about how these women are supposed to engage either in managerial position or delivery of news, and specifically you're talking about sports news, hard sports news, or other sports news that are supposed to be given by both men and women. And then globally, the Global Media Monitoring Project that was done in 2005 has depicted women to a level where women are relegated to covering sports in the sideline. Sports coverage, in this case, could be in the field or in the sideline. Giving an example, that in the previous study, in the previous AFCON competition of sports, African football, there were women covering sports. There was only one woman that was depicted, and that woman was a photographer. And I'm asking myself, are they relegated to taking photos or writing news about football, or that football that took place? So what is their level of engagement? A study that is done by Strong and Harris in 2007 clearly gave a perspective. He did this study and looked at how the level of engagement of women in sports in USA. And he looked at the byline, relative involvement, focus in news, and women in journalism survey in the same year. In this study, the objectives were broken down into three. One, to identify the level of representation. Two, to analyze the nature of the articles, and then to explore the editorial policies. That you move my slides, please. Move to the next. Now, from the background that I gave, you look at the purpose and the justification why this study is important on the level of engagement. We are asking ourselves, have women attained the gender equity that is in the Vision 2030? The purpose of this now, therefore, is to offer ways at which the stakeholders can do to rectify this anomaly, if there is any, from the study. And therefore, attaining this will also bring up what we call the attainment of gender equity that is capped in the SDG Goal 5, sorry. Now, this study is significant. It's good to have this study in progress. And one of the significance is that it will help to fill up the gap, that gap of engagement of women in sport journalism, by providing facts and figures. Remember, I'm talking about women visibility. Number two, it will help formulate sound gender-balanced policies in the media, equip aspiring women sports journalists who study from the media school and will want to move on with hard news production of sports journalism. And then the last one, it will help to bridge the gap through women's sports journalism. Now, in looking at the scope and the theory that is going to be, that was used and is still going on to be used, Lacey and Rife 2021 have given a process by which one can analyze content in newspapers. Content analysis in newspapers can be done using what we call constructed weak sampling. The constructed weak sampling will be put together to help come up with a sample that will help you come up with what you want to analyze or study. And in the case, using the direction given by Rife and Lacey, we came up with 140 newspapers that were captured within the period of study. Opportunities and freedom that are actually given to women in sports journalism will be looked at, or were looked at. Heavy daily newspapers with women magazines and pullouts were also looked at. Now, I want to give a statistical background about this. The Kenyan report by the local report given is giving out that the women that are involved in particular production of news by the Media Council of Kenya is that 41% of women engage in production of news in radio. 35 engage in production of news in TV. Then the list comes in reporting in the print, where 25% gives production of news. But it also goes on and says that it reduces with age. So the age that they come with, the women are given the production of news at a prime age of between 20 to 30. Then after 30, that is between 40 to 50, women are relegated from being seen to backside production of radio. So if you are, they're saying if in the particular issue that if your face is wrinkling as a woman, then you're not supposed to be seen on TV. You are relegated back to production of news at the backstage. On the other side, in radio, the statistics grow. As you grow old as a woman, you are given more time in the radio production. But in print, they are saying you will have more time when you are young. When you are old, you will not have any time to do the production of print. That is a report by the MCK. But in this case, we asked ourselves when we were looking at the literature, what are these literature that are actually giving us direction in regards to the study that we are doing? One, a study or a report given by African Women's Center and the Women Guild, Editors Guild of 2023, gave out a clear perspective that women are underrepresented and misrepresented in the media. So underrepresentation is the level of engagement. Misrepresentation is the level of representation, which we will look at later. The World Association of Christian Communication also have given their perspective in regards to women representation and engagement. And then lastly, Global Media Monitoring Project from 2005, which has already given us these particular aspects in regards to what we are looking at. Now, the section of literature given has some gap. And we looked at this in the study and realized that the Amwick 1999 report has no improvement in the amount of news reported by female, which means that female give news every day, but the same news they give are related to what topics I gave, which they call lighter news. Global Media Monitoring Project talked about underrepresentation and misrepresentation when they were doing experimental project. Then one that was done by Solomon in 2006 talks about more women journalists in the media, but news packaging was low, and therefore a gap is created in the literature. And this gap is no visibility of statistics about engagement of women. And finally, no corroboration between the qualitative statistics they gave and the quantitative nature of the work they were doing. So the gap that is created in this literature was about the visibility statistics on the engagement of women in journalism. Now, looking at the statistics we got from our objectives, we looked at one, the bylines about written by women in sports journalism, and we realized that in the Daily Nation and the Standard, and I want to say that we chose to analyze the two newspapers because of a myriad of factors, but the main one is the audience coverage and circulation, which Standard Nation comes first, and then the Standard comes second, progressively up to the last, which most of them are Gata Press. And therefore, looking at this, you realize that the bylines that are given by women in men regards to sports journalism are higher compared to women. And you ask yourself, what is the statistical package about women having less bylines in the Standard and Nation newspaper regarding sports compared to men. Number two, looking at the total, we are looking at the total number of sports articles on and by women analyzed in each newspaper sampled. Now, the total number of newspapers analyzed was 140, that is the total. But on women, issues to do with women's sports, written by men was 30, by women 27, progressively up to the end. On women by men, 35 and 16. You realize that then, the articles written by women regarding sports journalism on women, less. Articles written by women on men journalism, on men's sports, still less. And therefore, the statistics gives us a presumption that then the engagement of women in sports journalism is low. Another aspect that we looked at was the thematic representation of women sports journalists. And these women sports journalists are many. One of them is Joyce Getura, and when she is given a responsibility to do coverage on production, she is not given much, for example, in regards to production of thematic areas in sports representation. What they are given, for example, is victim of circumstances, writing issues of production of news on that. And we look at sports, which is more or less down here, it's around 10 stories, which is 3.5, and therefore statistically low. Coverage of sports by women journalists and men journalists. Here we also look at what sports, how many men and women cover sports sports in sports journalism. The articles on sports by women journalists, 15. Then the ones that are covered by men journalists, 20, that is in Daily Nation. And on the other side, the one covered by, that is on the Standard, the one covered by women, 25, and then the other one is 40. So you realize that the process gives us an open word that we are looking at the engagement of women going down and down as we look at it. Now, in the last one, regarding the policies, which is actually looking at a qualitative description of the study, we're looking at these policies, editorial policies, and remember the chief editors in any media house are the sole prerogatives, they are the sole owners of policies. They could decide to allow women to become part and parcel of writing sports journalism or not. And therefore, in this case, we did some specific in-depth interviews and looked at one editor who said that there's no specific gender policy, but we try to get gender balance in terms of recruitment with minimum qualification. For example, the category of pull-out is dedicated to ladies. So if categories of pull-outs are dedicated to ladies, hard news, whom are they dedicated to? Men. Then the last guy, the last editor said, there must be a gender policy for women journalists in the media house. These policies should provide for a broad range. But last bit here, there should also be one that addresses sexual harassment. Why are they not talking about sports? In recommendation, therefore, men still dominate the media in Kenya, yes. But we recommend in the following progressively. One, we recommend that the media houses need to have gender policies in place, and if available, then they should sensitize all employees, including women journalists, about those policies so that they fight for their place in those hard news. Number two, special need of women, especially those in the field assignment, should be captured. Then in stakeholders, other stakeholders like the government, etc., we should engage the media and then actively support initiatives. In conclusion, in Kenya, media women sport journalists' visibility is far from balanced. Please, last slide. We need to have a balanced and a strong bearing on the socio-cultural circumstance that buttresses reporting. And in this case, even against odds, and this I put down to as we study, it will take advocacy by women. All women, including those in sports and all those in media, and men alike, for gender equity in sports to come up. The last bit gives us a platform for continuous engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephat, for keeping time. I want to open this floor for questions. We will do appreciation for everybody at last year. Let's just open the floor for questions. Yes, Dr. Agude.
I can continue?
Yes.
Thank you so much, the presenter, for the good effort that has been done on women. I want to start by saying that I'm not a feminist, but on listening to the presentation, it was kind of subjective. Now, the aspect of lighter topics versus harder topics was brought, and it was categorically aligned that women are given lighter topics. Now, the lighter topics that were enlisted as those that are being given to women were topics like those in health, education, and even climate change. And I was asking myself, really, how are you measuring topics? Would we really say that matters education, matters health, matters climate change are lighter topics, and it is only women who measure them? I looked at the problem, and the problem that was posed, or rather projected, was, do women and women journalists make news? What if I decide to say yes or decide to say no? So it is my humble view that maybe that problem should be readdressed so that we may get a real problem that the presenter is trying to bring on board. Now, aspects like of daily newspaper were used as references. It is in my humble opinion that a daily newspaper may not be scholarly enough to be used as a scientific citation for an academic arena, like in this case. And even issues of editor 1, editor 2 was able to say this and this. So maybe, bring in scientific citations that we can measure and be able to tell. So in my very, very humble opinion, maybe we need to readdress this title and look at it from a point of view that it may not be subjective. Thank you.
Thank you, presenter, for that presentation. I wish to ask a few issues. One, can you tell us if print news superior or print production is superior than maybe broadcasting? Then generally, we are socialized differently because the society perceives women as a weaker gender for quite some time, and as such you have gendered roles to a point that you are assigned specific duties in which you have to undertake. But even when we are growing up, I remember a famous book, Mr. and Mrs. Kamau. If you remember how that book used to look like. Mrs. Kamau used to remain home. The children used to go to school, and daddy used to go to school. So the place of a woman was destined to be in the kitchen, and that is yet to change years down the line, because we can see in the print media somehow in broadcasting, women are assigned later duties that we are yet to hear exactly what it is about. But then you also need to know that girls, the moment you are out of school, you're supposed to go home for house chores. Boys will be left out there to do maybe 1 or 2 and maybe play a bit of football. That is where they become experts even in sports, and they're able to report accordingly later on in life. But at the same time, we do not have focus on sports academies, because most times the society puts preference on academic excellence to sports. Maybe you should be able to see that there could be a clear link between how they are bringing socialization, stereotypical issues, and gendered roles.
Thank you. The last one, very brief.
Yes, and it's going to be very brief because my points have been taken. But I'm just wondering, what did the speaker want to address in this study? because the study ended up portraying women eventually as weaker. And the other question is, why do you want women to report women in terms of news? What is wrong with men also taking up the role of reporting women in sports? So this study has eventually made a woman look like they're more weaker than it intended to do. And then when you talk about criteria, just reinforcing what she said, what criteria did you use to classify hard news and soft news? In my understanding, the science of health, the science of education, just like she said, is more harder than sport, going to the ground there and chasing the ball.
Thank you so much. This academic discourse is very interesting. So I'll allow Prof to give the final one. I think he has a burning issue. Yes.
Now, I want to appreciate the coming up of the presenter and duties and roles are created by the community's culture, and you take an age to be accepted. So that acceptability even dawns to the news, whatever my brother was talking about, news creating. If you look at, when we are talking about even the sports, the majority of the people in the stadia, you will see, to me, some of them don't even have interests. Look at the fans. Whom do you see in the stadia? And if you look at that, I'm only interested on why do they come in the radio, many, as they grow down, and why do they come more as they grow when they start? Does it mean that issues of news and presentation have got to do with the display? Is it a display so that when I have no wrinkles, then I become attractive, or I attract the listeners in the video, in the visual? But radio, I am now brought many because the voice now might even be better, but the physique is a little bit going down. So these are things that you need to defend or justify. But I want to tell the other gender, that roles are designed by culture. The roles. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Prof. Just what this topic is a live wire, so handle with care, but allow me to give you time to respond.
Thank you. I want to be very fast and precise. Number one, in news production, Gramsci says there is soft news and hard news. Hard news is produced and given regarding with what we call house style. In almost all house styles, they enumerate hard news and soft news in a way that in front pages they will give hard news depending on the production of that particular day. And when I enumerated topics that were given as hard, what we call soft topics, it was in regards to news production. And in regards to news production, sports came down. And that is why I was saying, when we are analyzing why is it that women are not given those particular topics when they are doing production, then it comes vice versa. But you realize that they are always given in the pullouts. Sports news back page. And if it is given in the front page, they are not given at the center, but at the periphery. So that is called design in print. So in print production, those ones are there. Number two, newspapers are scientific, just as population is scientific of people. In this case, we are doing content analysis of newspapers, just the way you can do a qualitative analysis of people. And therefore, newspapers offer a background to study content in the newspaper. So it is scientific, according to my understanding. Print production superior than broadcast. Both are broadcast, but one is in print, the other one is in electronic. And therefore, we decided to do print, not electronic broadcast. Then, what do we What do we want? Okay, fine. The rest we are going to discuss as the project is on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josephat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the presentation for today. We had 6 presentations in both Hall A and B. So allow me just to have this time to appreciate the 6 presenters in a very unique style using 6 factorial, because there were 6 people in each hall. So let's do the 6 factorial. We appreciate them for engaging in very good presentation and healthy academic discourse. Let's prepare. Okay, we start. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I want to hand this microphone back to Joel Nakitare to take it over from here. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Daktari. Mine is very simple. It's been a long day. I don't want to make you clap again, but I want to begin by still thanking our management, the Vice Chancellor and the DVC academics. We feel humbled that you've sit in the whole day. It is a challenge to us and we don't take it for granted. I thank each and every member who found time to prepare the slides, to sit in. We want the numbers tomorrow to increase, so don't plan to be absent tomorrow. Kindly come and tag along 1 or 2 persons. We forgot to come with our feedback forms, and tomorrow we'll try to have the feedback forms so that we hear from you what we could do to improve the conference come next year. But for today, we want to request that any feedback that you would want us to have, feel free to share with any of the committee members, or if it is very burning and we must hear all of us, then second, I'll still give 1 or 2 members to say something. Now, announcements. Immediately after this, we are all invited for a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you prefer. And then we'll take, kindly assist me the other. So as we try to see with the mic, I was saying after this we'll have tea, and then for those who are using the bus, we'll have a bus and it will go all the way to Rongo. So we hope that will be a good support to enable us move. But in the same breath, tomorrow we would want to start in good time. We are requesting by exactly 7:45. We leave Rongo. Exactly 7:45, so that by around 8:30, 8:40 we are here to prepare and start. Exactly 9, the first presentation will be up. And then I also want to take this chance to wish each and everyone the best. Those who are still doing the slides, kindly let us use the template that we provided. It is a simple gesture also to appreciate our sponsors, so that in each and every presentation we are doing, we realize that we had some little support from UNESCO. Any feedback from the floor about the day as we wind up before we have our word of prayer? Yes, assist behind the mic, Secretariat. It's been a long day, but we're almost there. Just a quick feedback. I'm only limiting them to 2. Any other comment as we introduce ourselves in the morning? Kindly talk to any of the committee members. We are here to learn and improve. Thank you. Karibu.
Okay, I have a suggestion on how we can improve on session time. What if we have all the presenters presenting, and then we do a plenary of the 6? So we put all the presenters in front, and each one of us shoots a question to the individual presenter, and it's answered at once. So that, I think, will save us more time. And in that way, presenters are able to tackle all the questions that are aligned to them. And then the second one takes like that. Then that will be something to save time.
Slightly go off that. Some of us have got recalls. When a presenter presents, we need to interrogate that, because we have recalls. You know, recalls is the duration from where we started at 2, we started at 2:30 up to. It makes someone with a little recall forget. So to me, let's just go the way we are going. We can limit the number of to specifics, and then we leave some of the question is this, and this is the question. Then explaining, then now you say the question is this after the rider statement. Thank you.
So we'll look at it and see how tomorrow unfolds. For the presenters, let's come prepared. Kindly send your presentations to the conference. What is the email? conference@rongovarsity.ac.ke. PPT. Anyway, we'll share with it on the wall. But there's an email sending. We just start. I really want us to finish. But the chairman is not allowing me to finish. Karibu, chairman.
Thank you, because he's forgetting one thing he's supposed to announce. We have PPT templates that we send to all your emails. Kindly, for those ones who are presenting tomorrow and Friday, utilize those PPT templates. So for you, thank you.
One of us was not in class. It is the chairman. I announce. So I want a volunteer to pray for us, Dr. Ann Mugalavai, to pray for us, pray for Jenny Mercies as we go back. And as she comes, I want us to clap for our DVCs. Thank you very much for sitting in. I grew up Moi time, so we do the Nyayo one, but just twice. Moja mbili, eh? Moja. Thank you very much. Karibu, Dr. Ann.
Thank you. Let's raise up and pray. My Father in heaven, we thank you. We bless you. We thank you, my Father, because when we started in the morning, we requested for your presence. Thank you because you have taken us through this day. Thank you for all the deliberations. Jehovah, we want to thank you and even continue asking you that you keep us towards what to do next, so that as we prepare for tomorrow, Jehovah, you be with us. I want to pray for all of us as we go back home, Jehovah, that you take us safely back to our destinations. We trust and believe that all that we have before us, you are going to bless it and let it be as per thy will, for we pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior.
Thank you very much. You are welcome for the cup of tea, and then we leave.